All right, here we are. We are back. It is Monday, October 20th, 2025. Welcome to episode 108 of the HEF podcast. That's the podcast of the Home Education Foundation. The Home Education Foundation is the organization that was started by the beloved Brenda Dickinson back in the early 1990s. And the work that she did preceding that with her husband and Representative Daniel Webster to make home education a statute, a recognized right in Florida law, was great work. And it's work that we continue today at the Home Education Foundation, and why we podcast, to remember our roots, to remember where we came from, what it was like to fight to get it there, and where do we go from here? How do we maintain that? So we want to say a special thank you to Brenda. She is with us again this morning, so we're very grateful for her. And we also want to say a special thank you to the parents of the free state of Florida. You guys rock. You're absolutely awesome. We appreciate the first annual fundraising match challenge that we did earlier this year in August. I say earlier this year, it's like time just keeps flying. It feels like it was yesterday. We had a home education family emerge from the state and ask us, from everyone out there, and ask us if they could issue a fundraising challenge. They'd love to do that and challenge other home education families in the state to raise the money. And if they raised $6,000, they would match it. And it happened right there at the finish line. So we're extremely thankful for that first ever fundraising event. We're very thankful to all of the parents who support us. I see the names come in. Once in a while, I see a cancellation. It breaks my heart, but I know that sometimes that's just the credit card, timing out, or things like that happen. And once in a while, I'll see a cancellation come through, and I stop and I pause and I go, oh man, that's sad. And then I see the same name come back through with a higher tier of support. And it just reminds me that, we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful about letting things get to us. Just stay focused on the work at hand. Take everything in stride, because you never know what good is coming down the pipe that you just can't see yet. Endure the moment, ride the wave, and go wherever it's going. So I want to say thank you to all the parents for the support that you give us. It matters tremendously to us. And thank you to our top sponsors. If you don't know, our top sponsors are companies and businesses that believe in the freedoms parents should have for teaching their own kids, to be honest with you. The freedoms that we all hold dear, to raise our kids the way that we see fit, and to be able to do that free from a system of entanglement or organizations that would want to interfere and tell us how to raise our kids and what standards they think are best, and impress those upon us in legal ways. So they believe in the home education freedoms, and they stand with us. And it's a very special position with us, where they have come alongside of us to donate at a much higher tier. So it's a reserved special place for them. We want to tell them thank you. Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, TBHC Group. We're so glad to have you guys as top sponsors. Now on to the main event. Hi, Brenda. Welcome. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
Yeah.
We all have too much on our plates, but all is good.
We do. We absolutely do. I feel like I keep taking on more. Crystal, how are you? I saw you just 5 minutes ago in the kitchen, but tell me how you're doing for everybody else. Oh, you're muted.
I'm good. I was running straight to this live stream from doing our learning stuff with the kids, so it's been a little bit of a hectic morning, but yeah, we're good.
Yeah. I have been really entrenched lately in preparing our young kids, especially our boys. I've kind of reached out to our fathers group here and our homeschool group. Something that's been on my mind for almost a decade now. Actually, yeah, it might be close to about a decade now. Just preparing young boys for fatherhood and kind of that growth and what's needed. And so many things have happened lately that have me contemplating the very real need to add another layer of physical preparedness to that, with the way I see things going in our world and shifting and changing. And it's important to me that our young boys be able to defend themselves with words, know how to articulate well their beliefs and their positions and what they think, especially if they want to also one day be able to defend their own rights. Because, you know, not everybody recognizes rights as something that are just inherent and free. In fact, our founding fathers had to write them down on paper and then enforce them by force to get them recognized. And we're quickly approaching the 250th anniversary of that, which will be this next year, 2026. So that's been on my mind a lot, especially with a lot of the other things that are happening. And it's important to teach our kids how to stand up for their own beliefs and be able to articulate it. But it's also important to teach them how to defend themselves in word and in deed, and in action. So I've started a group with our dads here where we pull the boys once a week, and we pour into them. We put them through the ringer of conditioning. It was funny because this week we set out for the first time we've had like the whole group together. And there's still a couple of more that'll join us, but we started jogging outside of our driveway, and our neighborhood has like kind of hills and dips, and so I was going to take them on what I know to be a 1 mile route as a warm up. And as we leave the driveway, they look at each other and they laugh. They go, "Is this it? Is this all it's going to be?" And boy, oh boy, I was so happy. I was so happy that they issued that challenge.
Started.
Oh yeah, man. So I was like, all right, if that's what you think, line up. And I put them in a straight single file line. And then I had the back person sprint to the front. And every time that person got to the front, we would call and another one would sprint. And we did the whole mile that way. And when they got back, they were not saying the same thing that they did when they left. And then we went on to work other muscle groups and some conditioning. And boy, they were tuckered out. So then we did some character. And then we did some combat. So we do conditioning, character, and combat for those three for about an hour. And then we record the character part, and they get to re-listen to it. They have homework where they get to re-listen to it as they do their exercises throughout the week. And as a way of checking in that they did their exercises, they have to put something that they dawned on them that's new, that they listened to it and they got something fresh out of it. And so it's an interesting kind of thing that I came up with to kind of push our young boys and help grow them. And the moms were really happy because they were like, my kids, they're like, we've been wanting them to do this and that, and they've been doing that around the house. And I'm like, that's awesome. It's good to see the growth. We need that. We need that because there's a lot of negativity around us, and we need those things where we see growth in our kids, where we see those positive aha moments come together. And that's really what life is about. That's really what homeschooling is. You know, as a whole, it's really not just about getting all the math problems in the book done. It's not just about getting all the science problems and checking all the boxes. It's about putting our kids through educational exercises that make them into who they'll become when they're done. And that's really the key. And it's so important. I think sometimes that gets lost amid all the experts and the paperwork and the checking of boxes and who signed off on that. And is that accredited? Our program's not accredited. I'm going to tell you that right now. But when I look at those boys and I see their little muscles growing and getting bigger, and I'm like, it's working. You can look at them and know it's working. So, and when I see them pick up trash,
confidence too. So that's a very important part of learning, is to have the confidence that you can do it.
Yes, I see them like picking up trash and doing little things that they are challenging themselves to do because of the character conversations that we have. You see it working. And I taught them a secret handshake, which I guess it's not going to be secret if I share it online.
No.
But I challenged them with a secret
It's
handshake.
also not actually a handshake.
It's not a handshake either. Yeah. So the challenge that I give them to know if they're in the club or not, and I shared this with one of the representatives in the Capitol the other day. I was talking with him, and we were kind of connecting over it, and he was like, "That's actually really good." I said, "Here's the secret handshake. You ask each other, 'How's your day?' And the only acceptable answer is, 'How I make it.'" So don't get caught in the small words or, "Oh, it's good," or, "Oh," we're going through life, going through the motions without paying attention. So they have to say, "It's how I make it." So how's your day? It's how I make it. And that's their little secret handshake. So I catch them doing it to each other now. Um, they'll go up to each other when they greet each other and they'll say it. And I'm like, it's working. It's getting in there. You know, it's good. But that's culture. That's culture. And, I've said it before. Politics is downstream of culture. So politics, policy writing, the things that we put into law, we make bills about these to protect these things. They all come from the culture that we believe is important as a culture, how we live our days, what we think is important to ourselves. And we're watching a new trend emerge where schools have been largely responsible for the culture. I had the benefit of sitting with one of the representatives recently as I'm up at the Capitol, and we had a couple of minutes. It was a really cool moment where he invited me in to just kind of have this conversation, and I said, what did you guys do for your educational track for your kids? And this person was telling me what they did, and I said, do you have any regrets? What impact do you feel that had? And the representative says, I think I took it for granted that my kids were just going to learn all the things. And I listen to them now. They're in their early 20s. He's like, I listen to them now, and I wish we had been more diligent to teach them this or diligent to teach them that on our own, and really kind of take that. And in the back of my head, I was thinking, wow, that sounds like you wish you'd homeschooled. Because that's literally what we do as parents when we're homeschooling is we go, what do I want to teach my kids? What kind of person do I want them to come? What are the values that I want to set as a standard? And we pour that into them. And it's funny how we abdicate that over to Julie says, #no regrets. Homeschooling was the best choice for our family. It built strong family bond and critical thinkers. That's awesome. Thank you for putting that in. Sometimes we come across these systems. They integrate as a part of our overall culture, and we abdicate certain roles, responsibility, and authority over to them with the trust that they have our best interest in mind, and they're going to carry that part of the load. And those, schools, systems, programs, curriculum, co-ops. We're not immune as homeschoolers to the same kind of useful, borrowing each other's labor, borrowing each other's effort to do that. We do that in smaller groups. But there are people who in public school and private schools who do that on a larger scale. And the challenge really comes whenever the values of that system no longer match the values that we have. So we teach different things. We value these standards and the system values those standards. And so that's really one of the big challenges with parents having the authority to make their own decisions and go their own way, because the system still doesn't think your values are right. And you're like, well, I want to have the authority to teach my kids my way. And they go, yeah, but not that. You can do that, but not that. And that's where we negotiate and give up some of our freedoms. Or we take it for granted that they're just locked in and they're in place and they don't have to be fought to be preserved. They're already spelled out. When they could be, one session away or a couple of word changes away from adding more things to it. It's really interesting. The bottom of the home education statutes, 1002.41, there is a section that it's very important. And I was talking with one of the representatives recently about this section because it puts a bit of a gatekeep on the school districts. And one of the things that it says right here at the bottom is in parens 13 at the very end, a school district may not further regulate, exercise control over, or require documentation from parents of home education program students beyond the requirements of this section unless the regulation, control, or documentation is necessary for participation in a school district program. So there are limitations, there are gatekeeping mechanisms built into the home education statutes that protect parents' rights and authorities, put limiting factors in. And I was talking with this representative, and I was like, hey, look, PEP doesn't have that. PEP is a great program. The scholarship program is there, but the section in the definition for PEP references the flexibilities and opportunities, but it doesn't carve out protections for parents' authority in the program. Like, it does it for private schools, but it doesn't actually do it for parents. And he kind of scratched his head and he goes, really? Where? So we talked about it, and he said, send him the language that we suggested. So one of those things that we'll be working on is getting some additional safeguards for parents placed into the scholarship programs, in the scholarship statutes. And a lot of people are wondering, are the scholarships safe? Are they okay? Is it onerous and restrictive? You're going to get a lot of varying opinions on that, and that's fine. That's totally fine, and people are entitled to all of their opinions. But what the law states is what the law protects. And so what's defined there is what legally can be stood upon and defended. So we want to make sure that that is something that we spell out and put into those statutes to carve out some protective language for parents' authority within those programs. I know that sometimes people have great ideas. And like we said earlier, politics is downstream of culture. So sometimes what's important to the culture becomes efficiency. Man, we've lived long enough in a situation where reimbursements are hard to get. And the process is just burdensome. And why are the representatives at the organization saying this? Or why won't they say that? Or why can't they just pass this through? And I've had tons of parents come to me with wonderful ideas about how to simplify and streamline the process. And they're probably not wrong. Because I'm like, that would be a great idea. I don't know why they don't do that. That sounds like wonderful. And then I have had others come to me with terrible ideas. And they're not necessarily parents. I want to be clear about that. But others from a more system mindset come to me with terrible ideas. Like, what if we had just pre-approved curriculum? What if we had pre-approved curriculum in the scholarship, and there was a list of that on the Department of Education's website, and parents could go and pick one of at least 10, curriculum. Wouldn't that be great? It would be so much more efficient. Everything would run smoother. They would already be approved. So all the parents would have to do is pick one. It would go right on through. No questions asked, because it's a pre-approved curriculum. That makes a lot of sense. Oh, that would speed things up. And under the name of getting my funds and efficiency and all of these things, sounds like a great idea to a lot of people who have never had a choice over curriculum before. To everyone coming from a public school environment, to everyone coming from a private school, that sounds amazing, because I've never had the burden of all of these reimbursements to chase down. It's a full-time job. I have to put the time that it takes to put that in, I never get back, and on it. And this is, oh, I didn't know I was signing up for this. Who knew all of this was that hard to do? This is so problematic.
Don't take the money.
There you go. There you go. But for the home education people, the tried and true, the traditional homeschoolers who just want to be free, left alone, set their own standards, and have their own values, boy, we don't mind a little bit of hard work. And we lean into it. And the scholarship's a great opportunity. We have to wait. We just don't spend beyond our means. And sometimes we're used to telling our kids no about a lot. I know in the Crawford house, we told our kids no about a lot. So the occasional moment where you get to say yes to some really cool things isn't really breaking us.
And I'd always rather have a choice than ease and efficiency. Like if it takes me a few extra steps to submit reimbursements and I have to wait and then it gets denied and I have to submit an extra explanation or whatever, I'd rather that than have my choices limited. So
so that's where we're going with this conversation is culturally what's important to you. What in your life is valuable, of value to you? Are you willing to hand that over to a system to just take care of it for you because it's hard? Well, public schools are waiting. They'll take your children right now. They're waiting there. You can just abdicate your children over to them. The whole thing. They'll teach their minds. They'll train their bodies. And, we don't really get to complain about the results if that's what we do because we don't play a part in that. Or we can take some of that on ourselves. And then if our kids turn out to not be what we want them to be, that's on us. Like 100%. That's on us. But culturally, that's where it comes down to you and what you believe is important. And are you willing, for the sake of efficiency, are you willing to give up freedom? Or for the sake of convenience? And having things, choices already made for me, that's so much more convenient. And then I can go about doing this, and this. You give up self-governance. You give up autonomy. You give up rights and authority. Every time that we hand over a piece of something we would otherwise make the decision for, we give up all of those things. And we have to keep that in mind. We have to keep that in mind. As we head into 2026, there is a lot that is going on behind the scenes. And there are a lot of programs that have popped up very willing to not be a public school and not be a private school, to be a different school, a school, your school. And they'll promise to do the same thing for you that the public schools promise to do, which is drop your kids off and we'll take care of it for you. Homeschooling is hard. You don't have to do it all. We'll do that part for you. That's the sales pitch, and you can buy it. You can buy it with your scholarship. You can buy it without a scholarship. You can send your kids back to public school and not have to buy it, except your taxes pay for it. But every time that you choose to do that, you lose freedom. You lose autonomy. You lose self-governance. You lose rights. And it's by choice. It is 100% by choice. So I wanted us to have that conversation today because I think it's really important as we move into what's going to happen next. We have a governor who is going to not be governor anymore. We're going to step into a new environment, whatever that looks like. We're going to have shifts in the legislature, whatever that looks like. And we're going to vote, we're going to make decisions, and we're all going to vote on what we believe is important. And if culturally we believe that convenience, efficiency, simplicity are more important to us than self-governance, autonomy, freedom, parental authority, then we'll vote. We'll vote with those beliefs and values. I think it's critical that if we don't like a system where they're constantly playing for teams, then we've got to get deeper into the issues. We've got to understand more than just which team you're on. We've got to understand what the candidates stand for what they believe. Do they ever vote on their conscience? Those are really important things, and it's extremely important, because it's not just about a scholarship or having money or not having money. It's really about the future of your own child, your own family, and the decisions that you are free or not free to make for them. I've talked a lot, Brenda. You've got wisdom from the ages that you can share with us.
Well, I think it's important where some parents believe that limited choices, because they see that as freedom, are not willing to fight for the full freedom for all parents. And legislators listen to their constituents, as you were saying, and we need to fight for full freedom, because when you start limiting what you can do, then you're going down a pathway where the next legislature limits, the next legislature limits. And so pretty soon we'll have it all looking like a public school at home. And when I was lobbying back in the early 2000 to mid 2000 for private schools, the schools were making the decisions that they wanted those dollars from the parents. So they were willing to, in a way, compromise their freedoms for those dollars. And so they wanted a certain test, which would have been the test that the public schools were giving their students, the state assessment. And so the governor at that time was really pushing for that to be the measure, because then it would be easy to compare apples and apples. It wasn't so easy to compare apples and oranges. So they had to figure out a way to be able to do that, which took more work and more energy in trying to figure it out. But what I kept telling the private schools is, you agree to take that test, you've just given up the right to choose your own curriculum. And if you do that, it's going to just be another location for a public school. You will have to follow all the testing, all of the curriculum, meet all their benchmarks. You won't be able to do what is good for your school or for the kids in your school. And that's the thing that we have to be so aware of legislatively, and that's the reason that language that you pointed out is in there. We had school districts that were trying to be efficient, make sure they covered all of the students, and that they were the ones who approved, because they wanted to meet with the parents and make sure they saw the driver's license and the birth certificate of the child, and make sure that child belonged to that parent, and make sure there was no abuse in that household. We've had those challenges. While we don't support abuse in the household, it's not an education issue. That's an issue for DCF. If somebody is abusing their children, it's not an education issue. So we don't want the superintendents to come into our homes and check our children, which is, as long as you're willing to give up your rights to the state, there's really, then you've crossed over the line of where do you limit their involvement. And we're seeing that in some of the other states. And it's a big issue because people get confused. Do we want children harmed in a home education program? Absolutely not. But the superintendent is not in charge of seeing that there's no abuse. Now, they're required to report it if they see it. But those children are going to be seen in other places. And even sometimes the children report their own abuse. So at that point, it's not the superintendent's responsibility. It's the responsibility of DCF to investigate and make sure nothing is going on in that home. It shouldn't matter where the children go to school. So you don't want to agree on something that gives the superintendent more right than they currently have and cause your freedoms to be taken away. So, over the 40 years, I've worked really hard to make sure that the laws say they can't control the curriculum. They can't, go beyond what's in the statute. And those points in law are ones that we can stand on and argue when a superintendent or one of their designees over home education tries to impose more rules and regulation that are currently in law. So you have to fight for the rights of all people, even though some people are more willing to give away their rights than others. You have to fight for the broadest laws that will give everybody freedom. If they don't want to choose that and they want to choose a curriculum that's approved, fine, do that. But don't limit anybody else's right to choose their own curriculum. There's even a line, and I'm not looking at the statutes right now, but it says that with the platform, I believe it's in the PEP, could be the UA, but that the scholarship funding organizations can create a platform where they have pre-approved. But if parents choose not to take that, then they can choose their own curriculum and then turn in for reimbursement. And we fought for that because, as you said, it would have been easy to just choose 10 curriculums and say, these are the ones you can choose from. But we said, no, what about parents that want to use a religious curriculum that's not on that approved list, or they want to use something from another organization that approaches things differently? They ought to have that right to do that. So those things may not seem important, but it's really important if you're going to protect the freedoms of all parents.
Yeah, it's very important. Here's that line that you're talking about. It's right here. And it says, however, an eligible nonprofit scholarship funding organization may require the use of an online platform for direct purchases of products, so long as such use does not limit a parent's choice of curriculum or academic programs. If a parent purchases a product identical to one offered by an organization's online platform for a lower price, the organization must reimburse the parent the cost of that product. So yes, you're absolutely right. There are safeguards like that are in there, and those are very important. Listen, I know it's hard as a parent. I was reading something today about Alabama's scholarship situation because I just was curious, and I saw it up in an article. People are talking about it, and immediately as I start reading it, I was like, this isn't how ours works. And I was like in the weeds, and it was confusing. So I can only imagine that if you're a parent who's not been in the weeds like I have been, and Brenda has been, on the ins and outs of PEP and FESUA and the home education statutes and the education system, that coming into this from a school mindset where everything was just taken care of for you, now you're in this, it's wild and chaotic. There's a lot. It's confusing. It's overwhelming. And
freedom is scary.
It is scary. But that is also why it is so critical. Ran into a evaluator recently with a bit of a nasty attitude about helping people with PEP. And I thought, man, that's so sad because they're the ones who need the help. If you know the way and you know how homeschooling has worked over the ages, over the years, show them the way. Bring them under your wing. Help them develop that from that unknown place where they're stepping out and daring to do this scary thing and there's a million moving parts and it's overwhelming. Help them rightly divide that moment. Come alongside them and help them see where they're giving up authority and where they're giving up their freedoms and how they could self-govern with ease. Help them see that. Don't just bash them over the head with, "But you're not a real homeschooler." That's so tragic to watch our own community implode when it has the chance to grow. Home education grew from 2% to 8% in Florida since COVID. It has the potential to have actually grown by that amount. But the truth is, it may have just fractured to 1%. instead of 2%, because some of those people took the scholarship, and then a bunch of people came from the public school to take scholarship, and it blew up. But now your community, if you see yourself as an isolated home educator, your community just got smaller, much smaller instead of bigger. And that's of our own doing at times, because we won't bring the newcomers in and understand the difficulty of being hit with a kaleidoscope of options and the massive wave of information that gets thrown at you and expected immediately to know. There are parents who walked into another county from that situation, and a micro school told them, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it for you." And they were scholarship recipients, and then the micro school tried to sign letters of intent for all of them, and then turn all of the letters of intent in for the parents, which none of that is how any of that works. But all of these parents are overwhelmed with all of the options, because it's a lot. And rather than bring people under our wings, the old guard, I'm talking to you, the old guard, rather than bringing them under your wings and helping them see it, some are very obstinate, very us versus them, and we need unity. Yeah. We need you coming in alongside.
Just to reiterate something that we've said in a previous podcast for why this is important. Those voices inside the PEP program that are coming from a system mindset proportionally are larger than the voices of those of us who have years of experience with home education and are coming from a freedom mindset. So if we are not onboarding them and kind of mentoring them to embrace their freedoms, those voices are going to be the ones that are heard more and overpower, and we're going to see more and more for the sake of efficiency or for the sake of this or that. We're going to see more limitation of choices, because to the people already coming in with the system mindset, it's not a big deal.
Let me add to that, because something you said is true, but it's not all the way there. And I want this driven like really, really deep. You said they're going to be the ones that they hear more from. No, they are going to be the only ones they hear from, because as they poll the audience, as they poll the people that they're serving, and you're not among them, and they're polling and they're asking questions and they're getting feedback, they're getting none of your feedback because you're not participating. They're getting only the feedback from the people coming from the system who don't know. They're getting only the feedback from these people. So being involved is critical. To being involved in that process is critical. It's key, so that you can have a dissonant voice and say, no, this is where parents give up authority. We don't do that. That's so important.
You're talking about these and those. Define who these and those are. Those parents who were formerly home educators, those with a free mindset.
Yes.
They tend to want to be left alone. And not be involved.
That's right.
So when you're not involved, the other voices, which are willing to accept the restrictions and limitations, because they see what they've got now as being freedom.
Yes.
Coming out of the system.
And a lot of them are coming. Yes. A lot of them are coming not just from public schools, but there's been a massive influx of private school students coming into PEP because of the change to the legislation they made last year. And so, they're doing a hybrid part-time private school, but they're still coming from that mentality of the school told them what to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not a big deal to them to have choices limited, because they're not used to having complete freedom.
Because 10 curriculum is a lot of freedom they've never had before.
Right.
But for all of those who it's extremely limiting, this is lost on them, and they're not polling. They're not polling you because you disappear into your little holes. My little hole. I want to be left alone. We all disappear. We don't like to be polled. Just leave us to ourselves. We'll take it from here. Home education is the ultimate do-it-yourself project. Thank you. I'll take it and do it myself. But then if we stay that way, dislodged, disconnected, we aren't polled. We aren't included. We're not part of that voice that's heard. And that's important. That's so important. It's not just that they'll hear them more.
One of the things that the veterans, those that have been in it a while, don't necessarily use a curriculum. They use mini curriculum.
Yeah.
Curricula. No, that's the plural. Curriculum. And so they don't want to limit to one single program. They want to pick and choose what's best for not only that home education program, but the one for their individual child. And that's the beauty of home education.
Yes.
You can customize it for each child. And now with the PEP program, it's easier to do that because you have the funds to do that. In the past, you had to limit what you could do for the child because you couldn't afford all the various items from the curriculum vendors that you would like to have. Now you can, but it takes a lot from the parent to make those decisions for that child.
Yes. I mix and match a lot of things, and I actually love doing that. So I spend a lot of time on the front end planning, but that's fun for me. And if I were limited to a list of 10 things to choose from, I would be very upset because I mix and match all kinds of things. And I don't think I use the entirety of any curriculum ever. Like I'm always just pulling out what's useful. But that's my approach. And there are other parents with different approaches. The point is to have the freedom to make those choices.
Right.
And so I just wanted to reiterate for those that are, Jason called them the old guard. I'm not sure I would quite consider myself old guard, even though we were home educating 7 years before PEP was even in existence. But I think it's important. We're not saying you have to take the scholarship and be a voice that way, but we are saying, please get involved and help mentor the newcomers and show them the freedoms that exist and the importance of protecting those.
Yeah.
Because,
and thank you for clarifying that, because that you hit a really important thing there with what you just said. Yeah.
And you don't have to do that one-on-one. You can, and that's a great way to do it if you run into somebody that's struggling. But the other thing, and I want to bring this up because Jason does every time, I'm going to beat him to the punch. The Discord will let you involve yourself with other people in your county that can help you with the rules of home education, and you don't want to give up more than the law will require of you. And so you can also connect with people around you in your county and other places, but close by, to be able to have a friend and a mentor to help you.
Brenda, I'm so proud of you.
Now, I can't get there. I don't know how to get there, but I understand the concept.
I love it. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. That was on my mind as I was listening to y'all talk as well. It's like, how do we? Okay, so then if we're not talking about getting involved, you also getting into scholarship to work from within. How do you help them? How do you come alongside them? There's a tool. Our Discord is there. If you're an evaluator who's been an evaluator for a very long time, don't refuse their services.
There's also tons of Facebook groups for all the different scholarships and just general home education Facebook groups where there are lots of discussions happening with newcomers that are onboarding, either scholarship or not. Some of them are just coming new straight into home education with the county, but they don't understand the freedoms that they have. And I see posts all the time that are, just for an example, some kind of post like, hey, I just sent in my letter of intent. I'm trying to shop around for, should I use Mia Academy? Should I use this? What, I'm looking for, they're looking to plug into another program at home.
Yeah.
Like, what do the rest of you use are the kind of questions I always see. And those kind of posts, you can make suggestions, but also just remind them of their freedom. Like, you don't have to go and purchase a prepackaged thing or plug the kid directly into an online program. You can do whatever you want. And I see sometimes some beautiful comments from people like, just take a few months and de-school and explain what de-school means. Those are all phrases that those of us who have been doing this a long time understand, but to someone who's new, they're really just lost and trying to figure out what to do next.
Yeah.
So, and the same is true for people coming into the scholarship, but they don't receive the same level of help from the veteran homeschoolers that I see coming for the people that are, home education with the county, but they still need that same level of help.
Yeah, and the programs and the school systems getting their contracts together now, and everybody's ready and perched to scoop them back up and pull them back into a system and call it homeschooling when it's not. That's important. Brenda, you were about to say something.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine. I didn't want to bulldoze over you. I wanted to hear what you had to say. But yeah, everyone else is perched and ready to scoop up and transact and take any of that money they can get their hands on as a program. And a lot of them are shopping for similar programs. And all I see on my marketing feed anymore, or whether it's Facebook or YouTube or whatever, all the ads coming up are this program and that homeschool program and this homeschool program. I'm like, those are not what you have to plug into. You do not have to do it that way. It is not only a system can teach your kids. You can. From the things I go to work, I work and I talk with people and I meet with people and then we have this conversation and then we randomly connect over something weird and dumb and there's some deep math thing and then I get nerdy and I look something up and then I'm like, wow, my kids, they're going to interact with people in the world, should be able to talk about some of these things. Let me teach them about that, what I just learned today, and let me teach them this. And I just keep pouring back into them as dad, like, oh, I found this useful today. Let me show you how useful it was, and watch how cool this is, and just keep packing it in. Man, they'll latch onto stuff that they're interested in too, and they'll tell you, and then go deep. You can mix it based off of what their interests are, and what you as a parent know has made you formidable in your life, in your career, in your work, in your job, in your relationships, and then you can just pass that on. That's education.
I think what I was going to say earlier
Yes.
is I think parents lack confidence when they come into this because they've been told it takes a certified teacher to do education. So they take on this responsibility and they go, I'm not qualified. Well, let me just remind you, when you have a baby, you managed to figure out everything to do. You potty trained, you read to the child, and you're pouring into them, read. If you read enough to a child and they can see the words on the page, they will learn to read when they're ready. You don't have to teach them phonics. It's a good thing to do, but you don't have to for them to learn to read. And so parents just need to do some basic things. You can read science. You can read history. You can read geography. There's all kinds of materials that you can use, but the other thing is math. Play games with them. And when they have to add up the scores of their cards from whatever game you're playing, hearts or whatever, and they have to learn to do that, you know what? They do learn it. It just is. It's so easy. We used pop beads and dominoes a lot. And my children figured out addition and subtraction without me ever teaching them. It just because they were manipulating the the concrete items. And so when you deal with those, they're just thinking and counting and watching. And it's not complicated. That's what I want to impart to people is even I ran into very early on a family who had a 6th grader, and the child had a learning disability. And the child had been in a private school, a good private school, and he was going into the 6th grade. He could not read. And of course, his self-esteem was about as low as you could get. And he dreaded going to school every day. And he'd tell his mother, please, please pray for me because I'm having a hard time doing this work. And so in frustration, they came and said, help, what do we do? I said, pull him out of school read to him whatever he's interested in reading about. Well, it was hermit crabs. And they read everything to a college level of hermit crabs. And at the beginning of the next year, she asked the child, who then should have been 7th grade, to come and help her with the younger kids because she was going to be teaching them phonics. And she was also reading the Chronicle of Narnia to the children as a reading thing. And she, one day, not too far into the year, she missed the book, and she thought she'd put it one place, but it wasn't there. And it happened a couple of times, and she was cleaning the boy's room and found the book under the bed. And she said, have you been reading this book? He said, yes, ma'am, you weren't reading fast enough. So it's not complicated. Just read to them, even if it's about hermit crabs, whatever they're interested in.
That's
and great. They had said he couldn't do math, and he entered he wanted to go to the public school at 9th grade, so she allowed him. And so he was having trouble with math, and they put him in a program at FSU to study kids that had dyscalculia. Well, by the end of the study, he was the top ranking math student. So, they learn at different stages, and you just keep pouring education into them, not school, but you just pour in daily life and things that they're interested in, and you become the best librarian or the best researcher on the internet ever, and just pouring it. So,
I was always a librarian at home. But I've become the best curator of board games too, because I just keep finding these because I do have the scholarship, we can actually afford to buy them. But I keep finding these really fun games that are educational games. So we have geography games and science games and games that involve math, but in fun ways where they don't even realize how much math they're doing. And logic games and all kinds of games that we use as a not the main part of our school, but a significant component of, what we're learning.
And you're spending family time together when you're doing those, bonding with the kids.
That's it.
Yes. And the kids are enthusiastic about it. They're engaged. They're focused. Yeah.
The key is, okay, well then what's the standard? How do we set the standard? And then how do we measure that? And then how do we duplicate that result? And how do we get back to that? And blah, blah, blah. How do we give everybody that standard? And on and on and on. And as I'm listening to you talk about reading with your kids and playing games with your kids, talk with them, challenge with them, what I'm hearing, the commonality is time, interaction, time invested in interacting with our kids. But that comes from a different mindset. That comes from not seeing our kids as a phase of our life to go through and get through. They're not a thing that we have to manage well and then like a Tamagotchi, and then hopefully, it doesn't poop everywhere and it launches when it's supposed to. And that's a good Tamagotchi, or they're not a problem for us to solve or to crack through, and how to, they're life. They are life. They are life when they come into this world. Beautiful, beautiful life. Interact with them. It's okay to build a life around them. And the more that we do that, the more they grow. The more they grow. And we've taken pieces of that off and given it over here to that system. You do a good job. 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 And then we hope that does it all. Even in the pursuit of reading, I've been explaining to my kids lately that there's a lot of articles I've seen about video games and game time and gaming and screen time and all. I saw one today about screen time, and I think there's some valid concerns there, but I think they all miss the mark. It isn't about the screen, and they're calling it screen time, and it's about all the neural pathways and the neurons. Like, it's about self-discipline. It's about seeing life happening around us and escaping through the lens of this other lens. We do that with books too.
Yeah, I think
books can become an escape. I have watched people when I was younger, because they didn't have video games in their pockets, walking around with them everywhere. I watched people in my home family go to the library and check out the next salacious book and check out the next, and they would sit around and read the book and not interact with people. It's the same thing that I watch people do today with their cell phones, where they're constantly in their cell phone. And as much as I love reading, I think reading is amazing. Brenda, you're absolutely right. Reading is wonderful. Unlock reading for your kids. But I've also seen some very brilliant men, brilliant problem-solving men who could build things with their hands that couldn't read. I have seen it. There's a level of interacting, problem-solving, critical thinking, living life together and being real with each other that we have to get back to. Netflix is not a babysitter. Please don't. iPads are not babysitters.
If I could just add, what I'm hearing you describe is isolation. That's your issue. Whenever, like, that's what screens do, is they isolate us from what's actually happening around us. We're in our own little world. And the same can happen with books and really movies, any hobby that you're doing for escapism where you're isolating can have that effect. And I think our culture has become one of such isolation in that way, that parents are not really thinking about that as a component of like what's going into their whatever approach they're taking for school or learning for their kids. Community, family, like even just taking your kids with you to the grocery store is a learning experience for them. They can learn about budgeting. They can learn about planning meals. They can learn about nutrition. Like if you're engaged and living life with them, cooking, shopping, all of it is educational. If you're doing it with intentionality. You know?
Yeah. And what I'm really getting at, because this isn't life advice from the Crawfords. This is the Home Education Foundation's podcast. We are HEF, and what we're trying to get at. So please don't miss this. If you left, come back and hear the end. Policy is driven out of culture, and so as we knee-jerk react to things like screen time, we're like, oh yeah, screen time's evil. But hey, look, it does have its dangers. Do we embrace a screen time policy for public schools and private schools and homeschools? You know, do we this is a wonderful thing. No one should have screen time, and we just start taking away freedoms. Well, all the freedoms that we agree people shouldn't have, we just start taking them away because by all means, our culture and our environment agrees to these things. We have to know where we draw the line. We have to believe at the Home Education Foundation, it's parental authority, autonomy, self-governance, freedoms, and the rights of parents to raise their kids as they see fit. Each one doing their own thing, setting their own values, having their own standards, and that being enough. And that's important that we understand how we get pulled in different directions from marketing this to us and selling that to us. We watched Princess Bride this weekend, and he says, life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something. That's right. That's right. And you can buy it, or you can choose not to and do it your own way. Tracy, you made a great point here. I'm going to read this. She says, I hope this does not come across as harsh, but it is a bit of a reality. I see part of the reason the veteran homeschoolers don't get as involved is, in general, the newbies are looking for a program that does the homeschooling for them. She says, also, it seems this generation does not like to be given advice about anything except exactly what they're asking for. Even if there's a better solution and the veterans are busy with the more traditional style of homeschooling, where they are actually interacting with their children. Yeah, and I think that's the kind of what we're noticing is these clash of cultures. And that's going to produce policy results. And if they're polling who's involved with the scholarship and who's involved here and who's involved there to make their policies, then we have to work. I'm a traditional homeschooler. I like my freedoms. They're not up for sale. I don't care about the scholarship. If it becomes onerous, I'm out. I'm in right now. It's useful. It's helpful. But the moment that it becomes restrictive, I'm absolutely out. There's not lost on me. I'll say no to the kids. The ESAs will go down to 0, and I won't care. I'll just be done because my freedoms are so much more important to me than any dollar amount, and it's not up for sale. It's not up for grabs.
Yeah, if I can just add to that really quick. I think part of why we went off on the tangent of, how home education does not have to be complicated is also for the new people. If any of you are listening to this, yes. The traditional homeschoolers already know this, but for the new people, you don't have to be locked into a system. You don't have to move from one system into a new system. You do have freedom. And what we're asking and encouraging is that you help stand on the line and protect that freedom that already exists, because we don't want to see that line moving. We don't want to see those freedoms start to get taken away.
That's right. And a big part of that is going to embrace slowing down. We don't have to go so fast. We don't have to be top of the class. We don't have to be first at everything. Slow down. Take a minute. Solve that problem. See your freedoms. Know what they are. Stand on them. And say no to some things. It's okay. It's okay.
And if you choose to put your kids into a system, that doesn't mean you can't still stand and protect the line
Absolutely.
for the other parents.
Yep.
And that's, I think, for both sides on this, we need to all be protecting that line for the sake of other families, even if we don't particularly care about this freedom, whatever it is for our family, because we don't mind only 10 curriculum choices, or we want to use an online, school at home online program. That doesn't mean that it's not still important to protect the freedoms for the other families.
And if you're a part of a system and that system works for you, great. If it aligns with your values, great. If it's doing everything exactly the way you want it to do it for you, great. I know that there are a lot of people who talk about a particular curricula system. Is that the right word to use with that one? Is it curriculum? I don't know. Anyway, you know what I mean. So if you're a part of an academic system like that, and I can think of one, I don't want to name it because one, I don't want to make people mad, but two, I don't want anybody to think this is the only one. There's a lot of people who love this particular style, and it goes back to a lot of the classics, and I think that's great. And if that works for you, great, but realize that's a system too. And if it works for you, great. And if it doesn't align with your values, does not working for your kid, that's fine. Find what does. Have that freedom. And whether you're in that system or in a different one, be able to stand up for other parents' freedoms. Be able to stand for parental authority and educational freedom and self-governance, period. Brenda, you look like you want to say something. I want to hear it.
No, I was just thinking that's a good note to end on.
Okay, well, that is a good note to end on. And we'll plug the Discord one more time. And I will say, if you're not a part of our Discord, HEF Discord, please, there's a lot going on in the different counties we have. In some of the counties, some of the parents have emerged to help us keep an eye on their school board. So they're posting some of the video links to their school board meetings and what they're saying and following the scholarship discussions. And that is absolutely awesome. And I wish we had a parent in every county that was willing to do that, because that would help so much. If you're one of those people, jump into our Discord and volunteer for that, and I'll give you a nice little badge. You be that person. Dads, if you're one of those dads, in fact, this person is a dad, and it's great. I love to see dad involvement, fathers getting involved. This is critical. This is critical to the future of home education in Florida, is fatherhood and fathers in being involved. Let's get that. Let's see you in there. There is also still the debate area. We have had very little interaction inside that. But I will say that I've had a lot of people reach out to me because it's been built and put there to introduce me to this person who might be willing to help or put some more programming into it. So a lot of the connections that are being sent our way are extremely helpful. Keep those coming too. Young people, if you want to be involved, you want to have some discussions, you want to take some of the things from some of these school boards, I will put prompts in there and I'll let you guys use logic, reasoning, critical thinking, statutes, and let you kind of debate one way or the other. And I would love to see at some point, I would love to see some of our young people emerge from that group to be willing to speak maybe at Tallahassee, to let their voice be heard. There's just so many good opportunities for the world to learn about what homeschoolers are doing and to see it, and for our young people to learn how to stand up for themselves and how to articulate themselves. And I'm here for it. I want to see it. So you're invited. Join our Discord. It's there as a resource. What else do we have? We have an interesting grant that came up to us with the James Madison Institute to work on a special project for 2026. So we're excited to be working with them on that. More details to come on that. That's a great thing. Going back to a founding fathers kind of your rights and freedoms matter. We love to work on stuff like that. So that's exciting to us. Legislative session is coming up in the next couple of months. Time keeps on slipping. So committee meetings have started, and the planning, we've been posting those in Discord as well, so that you can follow those and keep track of what we're keeping track of. And I don't have anything else to add along that line. I think that wraps it up for the logistics of today. Brenda, any last words before we truly bring it to an end today?
No, I just would encourage the people that are listening today to spread the word to their friends and their support groups about the Discord and about the tools that you created to help us build community. And I think that's so important, so that we can communicate when there's a challenge that comes up, whether it's at the school board or whether it's at the legislature, and we need to connect to other people. We need those people to be in our Discord so that we can spread the word when there's a need. Otherwise, we're like a bunch of cats, and it's pretty hard to round them up. How do you know where they are? Because there's no central list. We've worked hard to keep it from being a central list, but in the end, that hurts us in trying to spread the word. So help us get other people involved so that they're in our Discord when there's a need or when something arises we need their help with.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, so we'll just end on that. I'll say thank you again to the parents of the free state of Florida for your support. Thank you to our top sponsors, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metal, TBHC Group, and Arete. And another special thank you to Alex. I'll go ahead and say his name because I forgot to mention him last week, but he's an amazing home education dad up here in Tally, who offered his absolutely wild and crazy musical ability to build us our own theme song, our own intro and outro music. Alex, I know you're listening. I know you listen diligently. So, buddy, thank you. Thank you for all of your hard work and the things that you do to support behind the scenes. You're a great